We now have three new graphics cards from Nvidia on the market. There's the 4070 Super, the 4070 Ti Super, and now the 4080 Super. A big thanks to Inno3D for sending over that X3 for us to look at. Let's get this open and see just how much of an improvement it is over the originals. The main benefit we're going to see from the 4080 Super is going to be the price drop. We're going to have a retail price of $999 or £459 for the Founders over the $1,199 or $1,159 we saw on the original 4080. The Inno X3 that I've got here is going to be selling at MSRP as well. So about £200 less than the original launch price. This Strix, when I received this, was £1,500, and then the 4080 Super Strix is looking to be about £1,350. So about £200 basically across the board on any model you look at, you are saving. And there are some performance benefits as well. It's not just a price drop. We do have around 5 to 7% improvements, which we'll cover in a minute. So first in the box of the X3, we've got a guide about using the correct power supply. Nvidia recommend a 750 watt at minimum for this graphics card. Standard adapter that we see is going to take three 8-pin PCIe connections and adapt it into the 12 watt high power. We've also got an RGB cable here. This looks like a very small proprietary cable, and then your standard addressable 5 volt, so it looks like you can either plug into the card itself or into the motherboard. I'll clarify that on screen. And then last but not least, we've got an anti-sag bracket, so you've got the little base that screws into, and then the little post you can adjust up and down. And here we go. So our back plate, silica gel, don't eat that. And then we have got a big peel to do. Some ones on the fans as well. Really easy to take off. The last graphics card I looked at, I spent a couple of minutes trying to get them off. So appreciate the little tabs on that, thank you. So first impressions, this is a very slim card, just a dual slot card over the 2.5 that we'll see like something like the Strix, but these are just incredibly overbuilt. So it's nice that we've got a smaller width on this card, especially if we can use a smaller case, for example. Let's give you some dimensions. This is 337mm wide, 141mm tall, and then 40mm thick. Nowhere near the scale of the Strix there, but this was always a crazy size card anyway, so it's nice to know that it's a little bit smaller than that, because that's difficult to fit in some cases anyway. So before we go around the card, let's just talk about the performance increases that we're going to see from the 4080 Super. I'll put this on the screen as well. So we're first going to see an improvement in the cores from the original 4080 from 9,728 up to 10,240. We've also got some improvements with the tensor, shaders and the ray tracing cores, around a 5 to 7% improvement. This has got a core clock of 2,295 MHz and a boost clock of 2,550 MHz. We don't see any improvement on the core or the boost clocks unless you're going to go for an overclocked model. So let's look around this card. On the front we have got the three fans. These are 95mm cooling fans. I expect it will have a 0 RPM mode, maybe under 30%, 20% load is what we generally see, so it'll be nice and quiet when it's not doing anything. On the back we have got a plastic back plate, and you can see that big old heatsink on the side there. You can see how short the PCBs are on these cards, so obviously if you get a water cooling system it looks a little bit weird because they're so small once you put a block on it. I don't know if you can see on camera, but you can actually see the heat pipes through the card. A little bit tricky to see on camera, but there's actually 7 heat pipes in there. We've got the same amount of memory on the Super as the standard 4080, so that's 16GB GDDR6X running at 23,000 MHz. We can obviously see our power connector there, so the 12 watt high power. I can't see where to connect that little RGB cable that was included, so we'll find out about that in due course. But let's cover our display outputs. We've got 3 display ports. These are DisplayPort 1.4a, and we've got 1 HDMI, which is 2.1a. And then obviously you can support up to 4 monitors, up to 8K resolution, so 7680 by 4320. So I think I've covered all of the key specs. We just really need to get this into the system now and see how it performs. So obviously that's the main thing we're going to be looking at. A little bit more of a basic design in terms of the card itself, but we're going to be looking at performance as the main thing. So let's get this into the test system and see how it does. Our test bench as usual is the Intel 12900K, that's at stock on the Z790 Hero from Asus. Cooling it is a Corsair H170i Elite LCD. We've also got a Seagate Fire CUDA 530 for storage, then a 32GB kit of Fury Beast DDR5, that's at 5600 megatransfers, and then the power is coming from a Fantex 1000 watt Revolt power supply, and the case is the Etho2 Pro. Alongside testing the X3's performance, I've also tested the Asus TUF 4070 Ti OC and the Asus Strix 4080 OC. Now ideally I'd like to be testing against the Founders cards, as the Inno has the same clocks as the Founders, but I've only got AIB cards, so I'm doing the best with what I've got. Also, just so you know, the 4070 Ti currently sells for about £100 less than the Super, and then the Strix is going to be £320 more. First up, Cyberpunk, one of the most intensive titles that we'll be testing today. In 4040p high, the Inno has an astonishing jump over the other cards, but it's certainly offset by the minimum FPS, whereas the other two cards, be it lower FPS, seem to be a little bit more consistent. Adding ray tracing gives the results the shift to what I expected. Now the Strix OC is one of the highest end models of the 4080, so the higher performance is going to be expected as it does have a higher base clock and a higher memory speed. But even in 4K and then 4K ray trace, it's just a couple of frames difference. Now the Inno is starting to catch up with a card that's over £300 more expensive. The results stay very close again when moving on to Starfield, with both 1440p high and 4K high sitting within a couple of frames of each other. On Apex Legends, the gap between the cards is a little bit more prominent, but as Apex is a less intensive title, it's easy to gauge the differences with the overall higher frame rates. And again, the Strix OC is ahead, but only very slightly. More of the same in Dirt 5, with the Strix ahead in both 1440p and 4K, but the Inno is very close on its heels. I can smell you! Shadow of the Tomb Raider is one of the only titles that I test fully maxed out, but there's just 3 FPS difference with them again. The Strix averaging 195 is just a bumper's length ahead of the Inno's 192, and then again with a 3 FPS difference in 4K, 134 over 131, very, very close. Can it run Crysis? Oh yes it can. The Inno scored an average of 248 on 1440p high and 155 on 4K high. Last but not least, Far Cry 6, where for the first time we see matching results between the Inno X3 and the Strix OC, with an average of 137 FPS over both cards in 1440p high, then just a 4 FPS difference in 4K. I also did 3D Mark Time Spy. The 1440p version is a free download on Steam if you want to try it yourself. Then I also tested the 4K version, Time Spy Extreme, as well. So conclusion for the 4080 Super, a couple of things that I just want to quickly say. I hope you enjoyed the graphs and things. It's my first time doing that kind of thing, so do let me know what you think about it. This isn't going to be quite as detailed as Gamers Nexus, for example. They're going to go into real nitty gritty stuff, but hopefully I'm going to give you all the main points that you want to know. And by the testing as well, obviously the FPS is going to be the main thing we're going to be looking for. I'm also just one person, so there's only so much I can do in the time that I've had with the card. As you can see, it's already gone to the next person as well, so I have had some time to obviously get my thoughts together, and just bear with me because it's literally all on a clipboard in front of me, whereas I'd like to ideally use a teleprompter to tell you all this stuff, so I'm not looking down, but please bear with me. I have got quite a lot to say. If there's anything else you would like to see, I am planning to see if I can get it back to do some other content on. And as of recording this, I actually have a 7900 XTX, the Asus Tough Edition, on the way to cover as well, so we can do some comparisons to that. Ideally, if I had it already, I would have put it in the charts, but that was something that I could only organise after, so we've had to shuffle it around a little bit. But get subscribed, ding the bell so you don't miss any future stuff we do. So since filming the intro, I've had a little bit more information about the card as well. It's going to be an MSRP card, so £959, $999. So that basically is a no-brainer to buy that card, where the Strix OC is going to be about 1300 is what I could find it for at the moment. So considering the frames are oh so close, why would you spend an extra £300 for such a minuscule difference? So absolutely incredible performance from the Super there. Other couple of differences could just happen between runs as well. So like some results we saw 2 FPS benefit from the OC to the Inno, which was just a couple of frames less. You can get that between runs. Some days you'll get 2 FPS less, sometimes you get 2 FPS more. So such minuscule differences, and you're saving like £300 on that card over the Strix as well. Compared to the 4070i Tough, which is currently £859 a recording, averaging all the results out, I did a little bit more calculating, and you get an average of 17% increase in performance by getting the Super over the 4070 Ti. That's the Tough edition. In fairness though, I don't have the new 70 Ti Super on hand, so that might be a little bit more close. You might have to work that one out a little bit more, but for the card that I have on hand anyway, again, 4080 is the 4080 Super is an absolutely no-brainer for an extra £100 for a 17% improvement. If it was like 4 or 5, then maybe not worth it, but 17% is an absolute whack ton of extra performance for another £100. The design of the card is a bit more basic but understandable given that it's an MSRP price card. I can see it being a good choice for somebody that wants a little bit of a slimmer design yet retaining the 4080 Super performance. The AP201 was the case that came to mind with that, where you've got quite a small height on it but it's quite a long case. That can obviously accommodate the length of the card itself, but then leaves you a nice amount of airflow for air to be drawn into the fans at the bottom. Thermally as well, I have got results for this. The card reached a maximum of 83.2 in the hotspot, just under the 84-degree thermal limit, and then without the room temperature, which was 21.9 degrees, that gives you a 61.3 degree delta. So fairly good, on par with all the other cards that I've tested, including the 7800 XT. That was literally bang on the same temperature as that, so fairly good there. And I didn't hear the fan spin up with testing either, so it is very quiet. So if you're considering the X3 from Inno specifically, a fantastic price to performance card. Obviously, as you can see, miles above the Ti for another £100, and not to mention it's getting close to the Strix OC at £300 less. This is the price we should have seen the 4080 at to begin with. It does make me feel a little bit bad for the retailers though that bought all of the 4080 stock at probably cost more than the retail for 4080 Supers will be. So unfortunately they're going to have some stock that's going to be sat on the shelves for a long time and then eventually make losses on them. But anyway, that's another thing, another little rabbit hole that we could go down. But that's everything for this video. If there's anything else of course you want to know, then do let me know in the comments box. Any other comparisons you'd like to see, content that you'd like to see, maybe like build wise and things like that, do let me know. Of course, there's only so much I can cover in this video, and this is my kind of first comparison video as well, so do let me know what you think about it, any feedback and stuff like that. I will add the links for this in the description box if you want to pick one up. Of course, big thanks to Inno3D for sending this out for me to look at. If you enjoyed the video and this is the first one you've watched, please do subscribe. I really do appreciate it. It does help me out a lot, and we are on the road to 20k as well, so very, very close. So please do subscribe if you haven't. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all in the next one.